Sup nerds, I'm Tom.
I'm Wes.
So this is a tile placement, dice rolling with drafting. It's app driven, it's narrative.
It's legacy.
And it's legacy. And it's on
Gamefound. Lucky Duck Games.
And it's from Lucky Duck Games. And it's in a box. So obviously, since this is a preview video, all those first things first, that everything you're seeing here is prototype, including the app we used. And actually, we specifically got a 2 scenario. They said it's the first 2 scenarios of the campaign. That is 12 scenarios. Now, I don't know what we played, if it's going to be exactly the same. But most importantly, it's a legacy game. But in this video, pretty much no restraint on spoilers, because you're just...
Well, the first game, there pretty much were no spoilers.
Yeah.
It's a get to know the game, get to know the basic mechanics, and then it sets you up to play the first real game in round 2. Yeah. In which case there were some slight spoilers, but it wasn't...
I'd much rather you see the extra cooler stuff that comes in Scenario 2 than us just explain to you the basics of the game for Scenario 1. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So like Tom said, this is an app-driven game like Destinies or Chronicles of Crime. Now in the prototype we didn't have QR codes, but it's a similar thing where there's going to be a thing on the tokens or on the little board you're building out where you can scan it and things trigger. And one of the things that was really cool was that because it's in the app can keep track of a lot of stats for you. So there's like who can get the most of this thing first, or who can visit these places, or even like when you're building places on the board, like things like, you know, this barbarian tribe comes in and they ask you, where should we set up our encampment? And so you tell them where to set it up. And then if you go back later and revisit that encampment, like if you're the person who sets it up, they know that it's you. It's like, oh, you're back, and they welcome you and you get to see how much they flourished. And I'm assuming that it's going to be different if a different character visits it. Like I visited somewhere that you built, and it wasn't like you're welcoming back. They still were, you know, happy to have me. But things like that, because it's within the app, they can make it so custom.
I think app-based legacy is like just such a great idea for exactly what you're saying. Keeping track of all the stuff you need to keep track of in a legacy game. I think it's phenomenal. Now, what I'd say the core mechanic of this game is a tile placement with a draft. You have all these dice that you can upgrade with stickers. You'll see that on our dice we have a bunch of stickers. But you roll them, and then you use the numbers. You either add or subtract them to choose the tile. All these tiles are in numbered slots. Okay, so if I use this 2 and this 6, I'm going to want that to be an 8, so I'll put that here. I'm going to draft this tile from 8. And then you build a 4x4 grid. You know, like the terrain types matter, and there's little symbols on there that matter, and you're going for majorities or big areas or multiple of these.
Yeah, it's either having the most of a type or the biggest of a type. And you
again,
you
all
could get
considering
both.
just in the first scenarios.
Yeah,
things definitely change up as time goes on. And then there are also things like Wes said, you can augment the tiles a little bit with stickers and alter things. And you were talking about like a narrative portion of it. A big part of the narrative thing is you can put a sticker on there that you'll kind of have like a narrative type encounter with it. So if you draft this tile, you're like, ooh, I don't really know what's going to happen with this sticker, but I kind of know. Does that make sense?
And with the narrative, one of the big concepts of the game is that you have 2 different sets of gods. You've got the Nordic gods and the Greek gods, and they're basically vying for control. So you've got like Thor and Ares both on opposite sides, and there's a lot of choices that come up where you decide like who you want to side with. Like the people come tell you like, hey, who should we worship here? And you get to tell them which deity that they should go follow, and then all the people go follow them. But you're gaining points, like favor, in those 2 different factions. And depending on your favor, changes the story. Like, you know, and you can be wishy-washy too. Like the first game, I'm going totally over here with the Nordic gods, and then a few different things happen, and all of a sudden I realize I have way more favor over here with the Greek pantheon. So maybe I should go with these guys. Maybe I should flip back to this side.
As with most legacy games, there are things that you're going to upgrade, especially like your character, based on story things you've done or sort of the path you go. Like, again, with those dueling ideologies, I guess, you kind of become better. Like, have you played that game Infamous? It's one of the very few, or what was the one you said? Fable? Mm-hmm. It's one of the very few video game references I can really make. But it seems like the more you go down one path, the more your abilities and things are going to be towards that, or the more you go down that path, the more your abilities. I mean, I don't think you're stuck with one because, like, yeah, I think
you can definitely wish-wash
a bit. But it kind of felt like, well, if I'm doing this, I feel like I'm kind of getting bonuses for this, so maybe I might want to keep going down this path.
Well, the other thing with that is because every game you reset all these tiles and you redraft, so you can build up one area that's really powerful for the gods over here, and then the next game somebody else drafts that, and now they have this card that's really powerful. So maybe this game, I really want to focus on what this god wants me to do because I have those tiles now. And I guess the other thing with it is that your points with the gods track game to game because it's a legacy game. So like as you're gaining favor with the gods, it isn't just independent game dependent. Like if I gain 3 favor with this god in game 1, I start with 3 favor with this god in game 2. So you do have like it carries over. But again, your board setup could change so that even though you gained a bunch of favor with this god and you keep it, the next game you're gaining a bunch of favor with this god.
Yeah, like your favor and your abilities carry over, but your tiles and the board resets.
Yeah.
I do think, though, I like the core mechanics an awful lot. And I think that's important in a legacy game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, oh, well, there's going to be more mechanics. We're going to add things. We're going to change things. Yeah, but this part is going to stay the same pretty much every game. And if you don't like it, then you're screwed.
So, like, Seafall, legacy game where the base mechanic was, like, pick up and deliver, which got really boring really fast. And so even though the game was progressing, there were a lot of really grindy games where, like, I'm just so tired of sailing out, picking up stuff, and bringing it back. Where in this game, like, dice rolling, tile drafting, building out your thing, like that could be a game in itself. That first round where you're just learning the mechanics, like if that was an intro to drafting game, like that's a great little game.
Yeah, I mean it's a very clever way to you roll all these dice and it's not a single die, but you add or subtract and that gets you what, and like the higher numbers have the better symbols on it and the lower numbers might still be tiles you need. I mean you're probably going to need both types. So lower numbers aren't bad necessarily because you might want tile 11 and you have 2 6s and a 1. Oh, hey, I can add 2 6s, 12, minus 1, 11, boom. So
I love the subtraction.
Right, and a lot of the stickers that we put on there were options, right? Like I have a 1 or a 6, and I think I have, these are your dice. Those ones suck. 2, 4, and 6. You have just different options, and I think that's really great. But like again, at the very beginning of the game, we all got one sticker to put on, and I was like, oh, I'll cover up a 1. And then I realized, maybe you don't want to cover up a 1.
Yeah. And with that, even like as the game progresses, one of the little minor spoilers is that you get the 2 forges, like the 2 different sides have things where over here you continue upgrading your dice, and over here you're getting abilities. Abilities you just needed to have like super high dice. So, and you could stack multiple dice together to get there, but you're trying to get like 14, 15. Whereas the Dice Forge, you're actually getting negative numbers. Yeah. So you need to like have a 2 and subtract 5 from it to get to the negative 3. Like that was also a really cool shift that you actually really want to get not only low numbers, but negative numbers.
So in case you can't tell, I really had a good time with this game. I'm excited to see more. I want to see the campaign and what the other things well, when I say the campaign, I mean the Gamefound campaign and the full campaign from the full production copy. I really think that, again, I like the base mechanics. I'm excited to see where the things that you add and the upgrading and stuff. But more importantly, I just think it's a really great marriage of app and board game, especially like the idea of, so both Chronicles of Crime and Destinies was a good marriage. I think Chronicles of Crime was probably the better implementation of the two, like because I think the fact that you say I'm going to talk to this guy and ask him about this thing was really great. In Destinies, you had the map out that wasn't fully necessary, and also the QR codes, you didn't always scan the QR codes, but here I think the usage of the app for tracking everything from game to game and all that kind of stuff is perfect. Like it's almost kind of like a glass shattering moment, like in How I Met Your Mother. Really, why wasn't this how legacy games were done?
Well,
you know what I mean?
It takes care of so much of the like busy work, so much of the like, well, I got to track all these stats and keep track of. Oh my gosh, I forgot I actually had this thing, like, because a lot of it's like who can get more. And so I'm looking like, okay, do I have, how many does he have? Like, you don't worry about that, because as soon as it gets to a point where like you can't get more, all of a sudden it's like, hey, by the way, this person gets this thing.
Yeah.
So not having to like worry about that is really nice.
Now, granted, you do still you can keep track on here, and I think it recommends that you do so. But when we played, the app was following through, and it was even like there was a little section where it was telling you who has the most in what faction type of thing. And I was like, all right, that's awesome. I don't have to say, okay, well, now you're ahead in the red track, and I'm behind on the blue track, type of thing.
Yeah. It's definitely, I'm really excited for this game, and I'm really excited to see what else Lucky Duck does with the app. Because again, we saw the first 2 scenarios, so there could be even more that happens that we haven't seen yet, that the app tracks and develops.
It could also be some of the stuff that we're talking about could be not in, anything could change.
Yeah.
So maybe by the time you get it, it's a worker placement game.
But regardless, fantastic game, really great app integration, really excited to see how it all comes together in the finalized game and where Lucky Duck takes the whole app system in the future. So if you guys want to go ahead and back this one on Gamefound, there will be a link down in the description box down below where you can head on over and back it.
Unless you're already on Gamefound, then of course you know what to do. But speaking of the description box down below, down there is also going to be a link for Game Toppers. They're the sponsor of Neverboard Gaming. It's what we filmed Divinus on, like when you see those shots of us playing it. That's on a different playmat, though, than this playmat. You can get tons of great playmats, and it goes right on top of your table, blah, 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 sponsor stuff. Go get one.
And once you back the game and got your Game Topper, make sure you subscribe to our channel so you'll never be bored.
Ba-boom.